And there we go. Welcome. Welcome to PAX Australia. How are we doing today? It's great to hear. We are all really excited to be here as well, but also we are very, very thankful that you guys and girls have all taken your time out of your busy schedules to come and see us. That means a lot to us. We are PXtS Science. We're a podcast about science and gaming and where the two intersect, where they meet. And today we are going to be talking a little bit about some of our favorite things that have happened this last year or a couple of years in the worlds of science and gaming that has really caught our eye, and some things that hopefully that are going to blow your minds a little bit as well. So let's just get straight into it. First of all, let's introduce the panel, so to speak. We have Megan Pusey.
AKA Arknim, in the Omegathon. You may have seen her in the earlier rounds. Tragically knocked out.
Yeah, tragic. Yes, and my name is Megan. I'm a science teacher, but at the moment I'm working at a science museum, and I think this year I foolishly started a PhD, even after Phil told me not to, in using games in the high school classroom. So yeah, that's me. And next we have Phil English.
Thank you, Megan. So my name is Phil. I'm a lab rat. I work in a laboratory in an oil and gas refinery, but I also have solar panels, so I feel like that kind of offsets it a little bit. I'm also a hobbyist game dev in my spare time. I've done a whole bunch of jams, nothing commercial yet, unfortunately, but yeah, hopefully getting there. Also, yeah, I did foolishly do a PhD. That was fun. Not sure I'd recommend it to everybody, but yeah, it kind of it's very interesting. I think Megan's gonna nail it, so yeah, I think she'll be fine. And we also have MC Tim Young.
Hi, my name's Tim. I am an astrophysicist by trade, although these days I actually spend my time and my energy teaching other scientists how to do science better and how to talk to the public better, because apparently the latter, they're terrible at. Most scientists, we're all come from a science background. We all are technically scientists, whatever that means. But we also have speaking backgrounds. We also have communication backgrounds, so we talk to people. But if you talk to most scientists, as you'll see a little bit later on in the panel, most of them not so great with that whole communication side. But the other part of my job as well is to talk to scientists to show them how to do science better using data, and also, in some cases, using video games. It actually turns out that video games can help scientists do their work better as well. And we're going to touch on that a little bit later too. You might notice that that's the wrong, you know how I said don't press that button?
Yeah, you pressed that button.
I pressed that button. You might notice I am in a sling. This is footage of my surgery most recently. I am not cosplaying as a civilian from Grand Theft Auto, although I was hit by a car.
This looks suspiciously familiar.
Yeah.
We got a lot of mileage out of this video. I think we've had it every single year.
If you have been to any of our previous panels, you might have seen some of this content. This is our 4th time at PAX this year, so this is us when we were... Thank you.
We look so young.
So young and fresh. Now we're haggard and old. This was us in 2014. More broken. I progressively get less hair. Megan left to have a child 1 year, which she succeeded at. Phil left to have a child 1 year, which... No, Phil left to go do...
Work? I think you're on shift.
It's a secret mission.
Yeah.
We never heard.
Definitely.
And then this is us this year, but I'm going to give us across to Phil, who is going to have a bit of a fun survey with everyone.
Yeah. So before, and I don't know if anyone's worked or has been part of a university in the past, but if you have, you'll know that academics love Comic Sans. So for extra
I also like the
points.
colours you've chosen there. They go well with the blue background.
Yeah, it's fun. So this year, PAX Australia actually asked us to do just a little survey before we started, just to gather some data about you guys. They know that we're scientists, so they know that we like getting data. So we're just gonna kick it off with that. Megan is our official stat taker.
I can't write.
Yeah.
I couldn't before the cast either.
Yeah, you're right-handed, but we just can't read his writing. All right, so question number one, a very simple one, is how many of you, just raise your hands, that's all we need, how many of you have been to one of our panels before?
Holy.
Wow!
Keep it
Okay.
PG.
Yeah, okay, so, yeah. That's like, I'm seeing about 63.25%? 25? 24?
Round it. Just round it.
Round it, okay.
Okay.
Cool.
Down.
Okay, hands down, you
To
good?
4 significant figures, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, 4
that's the
figures. Let's do
standard,
that. Second question, hands up, please. So, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much are you enjoying this year's compared to last year's PAX? So, just hands in the air.
No
fingers. No fingers. Just hands. Okay. So that's about a 1.5.
We don't have time for
That
questions
is-
at the moment. We're just going to keep rolling on. So
Yeah, 1.5.
1.5?
That's not great. PAX isn't going to really love that.
10. That's terrible.
Yeah. Okay, last question is, if Tim's voice was a colour, what colour would it be?
just hands up at this point.
Just hands. I'm getting like a dark chartreuse.
That's
Yeah, you mean like vomit green?
Yeah.
yeah.
Chartreuse, vomit.
That's weird because in the lab it came out as sort of burgundy.
Yeah, that's different test
You mean
conditions.
peace?
Okay, so obviously that was not a real survey. I
Surprise!
totally fooled you guys. Yeah, that wasn't a real survey. We just wanted to show you guys that sometimes the way that we actually gather information can be a little bit incomplete, maybe not as good as other ways of gathering information. In previous years, we've shown you citizen science stuff like, oh, there's a screen there. Oh my.
There is. There's also a screen right there.
And there's a screen right there. We have shown you stuff like citizen science, like Fold It here. So Fold It is a physics kind of thing where you're folding proteins, and it looks basically like what the researchers are doing. Obviously not as pretty, but that kind of thing has worked in the past for more physicsy chemistry stuff. But when it comes to surveys and that kind of subjective data, games kind of haven't quite nailed it yet, except for one game which we want to talk about today, which is Sea Hero Quest. So I don't know if any of you have actually listened to our podcast, so you may have heard something about Sea Hero Quest before, but if you haven't, Sea Hero Quest is a game where you are a seafarer. Your adventure starts when your father starts losing his memory, basically, and it's in aid of dementia research. So I'm hopefully going to play some little gameplay videos here, if this works. There we go. So this is some gameplay videos of Sea Hero Quest. You can see me trying and failing miserably to not lock up the computer. Anyway, so the gameplay is basically that you are trying to navigate your way through a maze that you memorize the order of which the boys you want to go through at the start. I think you can even hear Tim and Megan in the background there, because I was recording this on my phone at PAX. We'll just go to the next one and see if it plays a little better. But there's different mini games to play. You're going through mazes, you're going through trying to figure out which way to aim backwards to fire your flare, to remember where you've come from, that kind of stuff. And all these, man, it's really struggling here. Alright, well, anyway, all these games are basically designed to show, for you to show the researchers how well you can, memorize space and that kind of stuff in the game. So, objectively, you are giving them information back. Hopefully this video is going to work. Okay, so this one is, that's good. Because occasionally you do actually get to unlock achievements and that kind of stuff. So this game is actually really, really good at providing you different motivations and locking up really easily. Man. Okay,
It's free on the App Store, so you can download it and have a go yourself.
Yeah. But yeah, it does a really, really good job at basically capturing this objective information about your spatial ability to recognize spaces. Which, in a survey, if you asked, your average Joe how well they can actually navigate, they may overestimate their abilities, or if you asked how well they compared to, say, their spouse or you know, a partner. They may overestimate their ability to make their way through a neighborhood or something like that. Yeah, that's really just not handling it. All right. Well, hopefully the next video works, because this is actually the researchers letting us know how much the data has meant to them and how much they've been able to gather from the data that's been played through this game. "63 years is a long time."
We found quite a number of interesting results. We've, for the first time ever, seen how spatial navigation ability changes over the lifespan. Second thing we've been able to see is fundamental differences between men and women, how they navigate space. And finally, we can see interesting differences between different nations of the world.
We needed really this global benchmark to create for the first time a database of spatial navigation behavior, which will be really important for the diagnosis of dementia. And in the future, this will really allow us to personalize much more the diagnosis and treatment for dementia patients.
So we're just scratching the surface with this first data. What we'll be doing in the future is looking at more of the information people shared with us. They gave us more demographic information that can really help profile how people perform spatial navigation, giving us that precision that we need to really help build the diagnostic tools of the future.
We are very pleased with what has happened so far, and we're happy to bring it now to the clinical settings so that the scientists can do very specific further studies with this data.
Okay. I think we're having some slight video difficulties. Is that... Okay. All right, so I think we're good. Okay, we're going to move it along. I'm sorry about the video troubles there. But yeah, at the moment they're actually working on a VR version of the game. I think you can even get that now. And that's going to provide them with even more data about, like, so say when you're navigating, you're looking in certain directions and how well that helps you to navigate. So yeah, it's kind of a really good way of mobile games using the data that they would usually use to nudge you towards opening loot boxes and that kind of stuff. Instead of doing that, you know, getting some good out of it and actually being able to provide this baseline for data for people that are researching dementia. So with that, I'm going to hand over to Megan, who's going to take over.
So I had some more VR examples to talk about this year. We seem to revisit it every year. Last year it was mostly medicine-based, and this year I've chosen some, I guess they're mostly training-based VR games and simulations. So the first one that I came across, which has just happened this year, was out of Griffith University in Queensland. A group of researchers wanted to research a bit more about drug and alcohol education in high schools. So they made a game called Blurred Minds, which is also free on the App Store if you want to give it a go. And it's a VR for the phone game where you're at a house party and you have to make choices. And those choices have effects. For example, if you decide to have too many pre-drinks, you get a simulated experience of getting drunk and then passing out before you make it to the party. And they're hoping that...
We've all been there.
Yeah, they're hoping that by providing a more engaging, interactive experience to teenagers instead of just lecturing them, that they'll find it hopefully a bit more effective in achieving the aims of drug and alcohol education. So they're still doing the research now, so there's no results out yet. But I think it looks like a really interesting way to use VR is to get people to experience things they, might be too dangerous to otherwise. And, as a scientist, you're not really going to get ethics approval to feed and ply young children with alcohol. So I guess this is a good way around that as well.
Also, it's had fantastic take-up in tests, in studies. They've actually taken it to classrooms and shown it. The kids love it because they get to do VR. Yeah. And that's so much better than having a crusty old person up the front saying, you shouldn't drink because it's really fun.
You get blurred vision and yeah.
Oh, damn. Yeah. I ruined the punch on that one.
Yeah. It's a show don't tell thing.
And also around Brisbane, I think they were also setting up at some of the Westfields or the shopping centres there and trying it in the shopping centre as well. So if you're from Queensland, you might see it around. Otherwise, have a go at home. If you feel nauseous when playing VR already, this may not be the one for you though. So just, a warning there. The next one I wanted to mention this year is actually from an Australian game dev company who's made this amazing game, which a really big corporation has picked up and is actually using it to train their employees, which is really, really exciting. Oh, hang on a minute. Tim, this isn't the right video.
Is this not astronaut training?
No. But that was actually a footage from a real training VR game made by KFC. And check out the full video online. It's a little bit creepy.
It gets a little bit
bit
crazy
Saw-esque.
at the end.
Yeah. And it teaches you how to make KFC chicken.
It's the hard way.
The
on
notes I
YouTube.
have on the slide are KFC is horrifying. This is the one I was actually talking about. It's been at PAX all weekend in the corridor, made by a company called PXtS PAX, called Earthlight. I don't know if... Hands up, did anyone have a go at Earthlight this weekend? But basically, you're an astronaut, you're on the International Space Station, and you have to go out and do missions and things like that. And they've modelled it to be very realistic, so you sort of get to experience what life in space is like, what life as an astronaut is like, the types of science and other sorts of things they do up there in space. So what's really exciting is that they started making this purely just as a really cool space game, and through development, they have actually formed a relationship with NASA in the US, and that, like, this isn't a joke, this is serious. And NASA are looking at using this, I think, to train astronauts.
Real astronauts.
Yeah, because they've modelled the International Space Station so well, and the immersion that you get in, through playing this game and getting a feel for what space is really like is so good that they have partnered with NASA. So, and they also, PXtS Space also won some awards in the recent Game Developers Conference at Melbourne International Games Week. This week they won Best Studio and Best Game for this game, I think.
Yep.
So, one to watch out for, definitely. It looks absolutely amazing. And yeah, so I was really blown away by that. And yeah, I mean, you're the space person. What did you think of
Yeah, no, it's I haven't been up to space, unfortunately. All my work is on the ground. But it is a fantastic, fantastic game. It's ultra realistic. We've had several astronauts play it and think that it is really realistic. That whole sense of, there is no up. There is this vast void below you when you sort of head out of the hatch and go out into space to do an EVA. It's a really, really immersive experience, and it's an incredible testament to that development team that with no, prior training, no really big assets or funding or backing by the space industry have created something that's so realistic and so immersive that astronauts want to play it and use it as a training platform.
Yeah.
And that we all have access to it as well, which is fantastic.
The last one I wanted to talk about, which is kind of, I guess, relevant to me as I'm going to have another baby soon, is related to pregnancy. So this one came out not long ago and is called Preterna. And I have a demonstration that I wanted to do. So I need a volunteer who's totally randomly and not at all pre-selected from the audience.
We had to
who's
make
gonna
sure
help
we had
us
consent. Consent is important.
demonstrate this. So it wasn't really a game so much, but it was made by two developers who wanted to help people who have not experienced pregnancy or can't to sort of get a feeling for what it's like.
So what was your name, buddy? Simon?
So Simon has kindly volunteered to help us out with this demonstration.
Simon, have you had a child before?
Perfect. All right, so we're going to put the VR headset on Simon so he can sort of see himself as having a belly and, a bit of a different body than usual.
So can you see the game in there, Simon? Excellent.
But you know what, I didn't think the game went enough, so I designed some peripherals to go with it to make it more of a augmented or mixed reality. I'm not sure what category it fits into. So first of all, one of the things that happens when you get pregnant is that, hang on, we've got to do a quiz to see how good you are at being pregnant. I'm going to list some foods. Which of the following foods can you eat or drink while you are pregnant? Can you drink a beer? Yes, Simon.
Pay attention, Simon.
Can you drink a beer while you're pregnant? Yes, correct answer. How about some sushi? You guess? All right, we'll go on to the next one. Soft serve ice cream.
Probably, yeah.
Probably. And some beautiful, my favorite breakfast, eggs Benedict.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can eat them. All right. And I've got some chips from the pub here with some aioli and tomato sauce. Can you eat them while you're pregnant?
Yes.
Yep. And a beautiful platter of salami and soft cheese, like brie and camembert.
I suppose so.
All right, you failed the test. You can't have any of those fun things while you are pregnant. So this whole weekend I've been sitting at the pub watching them dip chips and aioli and have their eggs Benedict and this and that.
Drink
Anyway.
a lot of beer.
So yeah, one of the first things you notice, now, do you play games, Simon? All right, we're going to step you up to level 35. So about there, you're going to, hang on, I've got a picture of Simon. Here we go.
Yeah. It's extremely accurate.
You're going to gain some weight around the front area. So we're going to put a simulated stomach on you. It's very realistic.
Extremely realistic.
That is a child.
No, that's a child.
So you're going to gain a lot of weight. So you're going to be carrying a lot of weight around for the next, well, you're level 35, so the next few weeks, a month or so. Also, we're going to experience some other unpleasant things. Nasal congestion, you're going to find it a bit harder to breathe. You'll experience some heartburn every time you eat. Maybe some abdominal pain. So we've put a simulated child in there who will kick you in the stomach every now and again. Are you breaking the baby? Yeah, he'll kick you in the stomach at all times of the day. Also, shortness of breath, so you can't really exercise too much. Some backaches, and more importantly, you'll need to urinate constantly. So we're going to put a water bottle in there, and
This thing's full and it just leaks all the time. So.
yeah. Well, actually, we've also put some alarms on your phone, and if you don't get to the toilet within a few minutes of these alarms, the water bottle's going to leak into, downwards. So, yeah, there's that too. I think, Tim, these are actually your wake-up alarms.
This is actually my phone's
I
wake-up
said, can you
alarm.
make some random alarms at random intervals?
I have trouble opening my eyes.
So,
Yeah, pregnancy is horrifying.
Now, just keep that on for the next month.
Yep. And then you get your prize at the end of that.
Yeah. No, thank you very much, Simon, for volunteering to
Everyone
be
give a big
our
round of
guinea
applause.
pig. I do have a prize for Simon. Phil wanted to veto this game, me mentioning this game, but I thought it was too hilarious not to mention, and I couldn't believe it was real. We're giving him a PeriFit. I don't know if you've seen one of these before, but a PeriFit helps you after pregnancy, Simon, to recuperate with your pelvic floor muscles. I'm hoping this one will play.
There we go. So it does come with a peripheral.
Yes, this is real. It was on Indiegogo. It reached like over 1,700% of its total. So yeah, we've given you the discount,
download
not
codes
discount
there.
code, coupon code there, so you can
Yeah.
unlock that. But yeah, anyway, thank you so much, Simon.
Thanks, Simon. Cheers, mate.
No, but this is real. Essentially, they're trying to gamify a health issue and make that health issue more fun or engaging to do, because most people ignore it and don't do it, but it's really important. So it is real and you can buy it online. And I'm going to hand over to Tim to talk about other games.
Yeah, so maybe not so much the PeriFit, but
You were the one
definitely
who showed me that. I didn't even find that.
you have to tell them that. So, on the topic of virtual reality and augmented reality, and especially augmented reality, there has been a huge explosion in that whole scene at the moment. So this is being furthered, especially, hands up who plays Pokemon Go. It's a safe place, it's okay. You don't have to play it right now, but I'm sure most of us at least were playing it during launch. That kind of augmented reality experience is becoming a really big deal. So it's things that are geolocationarily tagged, things that you actually have to go out to a physical place to get the rewards or to interact with the game. Also things that can look to the world around you, use the camera and overlay things on top of it. In fact, you might have seen that the new iPhone also has a very specific chip built into it that is designed purely for this, for allowing it to do these high-level computations. So they call it a neural network chip. It's not a neural network chip. And it allows them to do these kinds of AR games. There's one happening right now, in fact, as part of Melbourne International Games Week. It's called Wayfinder Live. Is anyone playing Wayfinder Live at the moment? Oh, one maybe, a couple of yeses. I don't know what the maybe is. Like, I think I'm playing it, I'm not sure. I dream about it and there's screaming and I wake up covered in blood. Is that the game? Yeah. So Wayfinder Live is a game that is somewhat similar to Pokemon Go, or more similar to Niantic Labs, who made Pokemon Go, more similar to their original game, which is called Ingress. And it's a game where you go out, you find QR codes, much like you've been searching for in the PAX convention hall for... Did anyone get the prize yet? Yep.
Has it broken yet?
Yeah. Excellent. These are beautiful QR codes that are spotted throughout Melbourne. They're actually crafted out of wood and plastic. They're physical things that are hidden away in alley lanes and all these intricate places. And you have to go to them and you put your camera up against them, and I don't know if we're going to be able to see it on the video, but the barcode actually starts to unfold in real time on your phone. It starts to show you a bit more of the map of the area around you depicted in a really beautiful manner. And so this is a game that not only allows you to go out, find things, unlock XP, you can also do things like take over areas if you choose the right faction's color.
Green.
But also green, if you're playing with us. It also allows you to learn about the history of the city that you're in. Learn about the names, why the alley might be called that. Also some of the street art that is in those nearby alleys. So it's a way to explore the city around you. So we're already starting to see, it's also teamed up with, I think, Zomato to get restaurant discounts as well, which is quite nice. So these are ways that we can start to utilize games, actual games, real games that we enjoy playing, not just games that are there to sort of make us do another thing. They can sync with the rest of the world to have these extra sort of flow-on experiences.
And I know last year when we played, so they've done it this year and last year just for Melbourne International Games Week, and then they take the codes down. When we were looking for the codes, we were actually paying more attention to everything that was around us. And like looking at all the walls and the graffiti and trying to find these codes.
Ironically, with our phones out, we were spending more time looking at the place around us rather than at the phone and bumping into people and walking in front of trucks. I mean, getting hit by cars. So augmented reality is a big deal, and it's just starting to get bigger and bigger. In fact, speaking of astronauts, as we were before, the Microsoft HoloLens, which we might have heard about as well, that was recently given to a pair of astronauts. One astronaut in particular, astronaut Scott Kelly, he took it up to the International Space Station, and the idea was that the HoloLens allows us to put an augmented display over their vision so that they can see what they're looking at on the space station, where this bolt needs to go when they're doing an EVA to fix something outside. It also shows them things like, how much oxygen do they have left in their tanks, because that's an important thing to know when you're in space. It tells them how much longer until sunrise. So all these extra things, and they actually called it the quest log that's up on the side of their screen. So they're starting to use game terms to describe how they do their real life. And they took it up onto the International Space Station, and immediately they played Space Invaders.
Well, they have to prepare for, the possibility of an alien invasion.
So this is astronaut Scott Kelly at the moment on the International Space Station. Maybe it's going to play, maybe not. There we go. Okay, it's doing its thing. That's fine. They spent hours on the International Space Station playing Space Invaders with Mission Control saying, could you stop? We have work to do. And they're like, yeah, just one more, hang on. And it turns out there's nothing you can do at Mission Control to make an astronaut do their job. Didn't think that one through. But they loved it. They absolutely loved it. And it was an incredible way for them to get some stress relief up there on the space station. So already they're starting to look at ways that games can be used to actually
It looks
do
like
their
something
job.
not Space Invaders, but...
Yeah.
I just love how everyone using a HoloLens looks like this.
Yeah, so the only way you can interact with HoloLens is that it registers your fingers closing. That's the way to interact with everything around you. So it looks like a nipple tweaking game, but it's actually Space Invaders. So, flipping it around for a quick second, we see all these awesome stories about scientists using games or games utilizing science, but how do we become scientists? How do people like us become scientists? And how do people like you become scientists? And the answer to that question almost always is that it comes from having a good role model, having an idol that you can look up to. And unfortunately, in games, that's not something that happens too often. We don't get good role models for games. In fact, most of the early role models for scientists in games were not the good ones.
No.
They were always the bad guy. It was really weird. Even in Final Fantasy, you had Hojo.
Hojo.
There we go. And another game called Sin, where the one of the main characters was this character, who I can only show from the waist up because of the rating of the panel.
Also, trying to find an image that was that fully clothed was quite difficult.
It was hard. I had to search through a lot of
Pointless images. Pointless.
a lot of pointless images to get to these photos. It was ridiculous and in no way fun. So we don't get to see any good role models, and in fact, it's not until we start to get characters like this pop up that we have good scientists. So we have a good professor in a video game. Sorry? Oh, you could question that. Absolutely, you could question that.
I mean, trapping Pokemon
There's
in
certainly
tiny
some,
prisons and
some ethics issues.
slaves and
Although I will point out that it took us 5 games of Pokemon before we got a female professor. So not the greatest set of role models there. And in terms of equality and in terms of getting a lot of diversity out there, most of these scientists were male, unfortunately. We don't get to play as a scientist, although again, that's arguable up until we get to Half-Life, where everyone's favorite theoretical physicist, who I can't remember the last time I carried a crowbar in the lab. Did you guys ever carry?
Sometimes.
Sometimes?
Just got to open a valve. It's pretty useful.
Zing. We also saw some of his counterparts as well. So you have Dr. Kleiner and Eli and his daughter Alex. And then I think at the bottom there, that's a rare photo of Phil during his PhD.
Is that what you were warning me
Bashing
off?
at the grant score, I think. Yeah.
And just screaming.
Or the computer. Where did that chapter go? No.
I didn't write it.
I actually really like at this photo here with Alex Vance saying you're lucky that you got that hazard suit.
Yeah.
Because I feel like if she had gotten the hazard suit first, she would have been, Gordon Freeman's equal, if not better. She tends to save the day, her and Dog.
Yeah, she's a lot more accurate than I am, that's for sure. So we start to see good scientists pop up now, and we're starting to reach a better era in terms of positive science images. One scientist that you've been playing for quite some time, but you might not have thought of it, is actually this one. So Lara Croft is an archaeologist. She also steals artifacts from indigenous populations. So again, we're not so great on the ethics one here. Yeah, exactly. And on top of that, I had to pay the DLC to get her to wear a scientifically appropriate piece of clothing. You normally have to wear the weird tank top, although I will say that she's
surviving.
She's come a long way since the early 90s in there. I'm not sure what was going on.
They could only use triangles.
Yeah, they could have used different triangles. We are all different. That's right. We shouldn't judge. We shouldn't body
Based
shame.
on shape.
Some of us have giant triangle breasts. So we also are starting to have a lot more science representation now. We're also starting to have scientists being represented in ways that we might not normally think of. Ways like, for example, yay!
Yes.
One of our favorite scientists who casually caused genocide.
Grey area
But
again.
at least, this is a game where it talks about that. And it actually goes through the whole Mass Effect series and talks about this whole accidental / not entirely or even remotely accidental genocide and the ethics that comes up with that, and how that we do have to, as scientists, be mindful of the things that we're doing, of the experiments that we're doing. Not everything is okay. The ends don't always justify the means. And then, of course, we lost him. Which still... No, spoilers for you, Phil. Because Phil still hasn't played it.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. we're now getting to the point where games have multiple scientists in it. So by the time we reach Overwatch, yay!
Very
ton of
Overwatch-centric
scientists.
over there. That's good.
In fact, Overwatch has 4.5 scientists, which is fantastic.
You mean the gorilla, right?
The engineer.
Oh, right.
Oh, the audience offside now.
We were so
Half
close
of
to
this
taking that
audience
one
isn't
out.
coming back next year now, too.
But we are starting to see, I mean, Megan can tell you all of their occupations and their backstories because she's a
Putting her on the
Overwatch.
spot.
Yeah, Torbjorn. Mercy was a medic. May was a climatologist, but she was the last living member of her team because the rest passed away in cryogenesis. Winston,
Were they working for Australia?
No, they're in Antarctica.
Because we're pretty good at getting rid of our climate scientists.
Ah, good point.
That's good.
It could have been in the Australian part of Antarctica.
Yeah, it could be McMurdo.
I think Winston was just engineer, scientist all around, and I can't remember Symmetra.
Anyone?
Architect. Yeah, she's turning energy into matter, yeah. Yeah.
We'll call her a quantum physicist.
I guess that's the closest to what we have, essentially.
Sure.
But yeah, I really like playing Overwatch, but I liked this game, like when we were talking about this, planning this episode for the podcast, and we found all these bad ones, and we're like, where are the good ones? Because we call it the good, the bad, and the ugly, and so we're trying to find examples for each. This was like the only one that
Overwatch
we
is
could
very
find
good.
that fit in the good
Yeah.
category.
So thumbs up to, or one thumb up to Overwatch for being a game that actually embraces diversity and actually embraces these different stories. So
Oh, and we were
Fantastic.
just commenting earlier with the cosplay today, like the reason why we think it's so popular is because there's so many different characters of so many different types that it's easy to pick one that you feel comfortable with and that you like and identify with to cosplay as, rather than some other games where it's like really specific characters that you might not get or feel the jive with. Yeah.
So now that we have these positive role models in the games, I guess the next step is for people like you to go out and maybe think about getting into science. Maybe you will have children that you want to encourage down that path. But on top of that, you don't have to do the science yourself. You can just start playing some of these games. Download See Hero Quest and contribute to dementia research. There's an entire website called Science at Home, quite literally just Science at Home, which allows you to download hundreds of citizen science projects that you can sit down and play. We talked about a lot of them in our previous panel, which is on YouTube or Twitch, which you can have a look at that as well. But the other thing is that you can just come to conventions like this, come to places like PAX, talk to people, make those incredible connections, because when we were talking before the panel, what is the ultimate message of this, is that through all of this, you all make a difference. Every single one of us has the ability to contribute, to actually go out there and make a positive change in the world. It might not be a big one, but every one of those little changes adds up to something really remarkable. And so that's what we want to leave you with. Thank you very much for coming. Enjoy the rest of PAX.
Did you want to do Q&A? Yeah.
So we also have some microphones at the front. You can leave because there's the Amigathon final coming up and also the big finale of PAX as well. So we won't be too hurt if you want to leave. But we do have the microphones at the front if you want to ask some questions about anything that we've just spoken about our jobs, our science, or if you have a question that you're just dying to know and see if we can answer anyway.
I don't know if we can measure up to Dr. Carl, but
No, we can't.
we could try.
Yo!
Hi, I'm still in school and trying to figure out what I want to do with my future.
So are we.
School of life.
What were some big contributing factors to how you picked your career paths?
I actually wanted to be a scientist ever since I was 6 years old. I actually have a little thing from primary school where I wrote down what I wanted to be when I grew up, and scientist was one of them. I think if you are after a career that can challenge you and can be frustrating at times, but that you can learn and get through, I think science is the way to go. Don't let anyone convince you that academia is the only way to go. That would be one thing that I would suggest. You can go to so many different places with science. I started out in academia, decided it wasn't for me, and went out into industry. So there are so many different ways that you can get out there. But yeah, I think...
In fact, all three of us started off in academia, in research, and then went on to do other things as we realized that there were better and ways that we could personally make a difference.
Yeah.
So find the passion, I guess.
Yeah.
Find what you're passionate about and just let that drive you.
Yeah, I just kept doing things that I thought were interesting, and it just kind of ended up here. I didn't have any goal or long-term plan. It was just like, oh yeah, this is cool. I'll just do physics at university because it's fun.
And you will hit 30 and go, now what do I want to do now? So I wouldn't stress about it.
Thank you for your input.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, I play a game called EVE Online. They do a project called Project Discovery.
They do.
Yeah, so you guys have heard of it? I just wanted to ask what you think about that and getting players to actually work in science as a part of the game.
I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, we
brilliant.
talked about it last year in our panel, and we thought it was a really, really good example of citizen science because it was tapping into a large player base. The game was designed well, and it was also in-game rewards to encourage people to do it. So you had to, and it's done in a really clever way because I believe it's done during like a waiting time where you're not really doing anything anyway. And so if you're bored, oh yeah, go into here and you can earn some like cool in-game currency and armor and stuff. So I thought, and they'd partnered with a university, so it is contributing directly to scientific research. So I thought that was done really, really well. More so than the standalone games, where, like, for example, Science at Home, not that they're bad games, just that it's hard to get traction and hard to get players over there unless they're already interested in science, whereas this was tapping into millions who already play EVE Online, who may or may not be into science, but will like happily spend a few minutes here and there.
And they chose their audience well, because I feel like EVE Online players are probably that kind of analytical mind, you know, very keen on watching numbers go up and down and that kind of stuff. So,
And even just a couple of minutes from 1,000 players is a couple of thousand minutes.
Yeah.
Like that distribution is really, really good. So I think it's a fantastic project.
Yeah, more
like it.
of those.
More. Please. Over to you.
Nice. For things like that educational VR game that you showed before about the safe drinking and things like that, do you get any sort of pushback or disengagement from like the teenagers when they realize that it is something that's trying to teach them something?
I haven't done
lectures
this.
to them, essentially?
I haven't done this one personally in a classroom, but I have done high school teaching. And the kids, if you're using a technique that is not lecturing, and you're giving them some choice, and if they're and things like VR are quite new in education, in the realm of education still, but you know, a lot of kids are into technology, a lot of kids play games already at home, and so for them to see something like this in the classroom, for them it's exciting. They don't really care whether it's about what it's about, they're just excited by getting to do something different that's not sitting still and listening to someone lecture at them. So my guess is that they'll get engagement in the tool. As to whether the message will get across, I don't know. I guess you'd have to look at the research results. But as a tool in the classroom at the moment, it's still, students are finding it really exciting and super engaging to jump into VR and do something a bit different. And games are really engaging for them as well, rather than just doing a worksheet, watching a video or listening to a lecture. So yeah, I think it's definitely an interesting area to explore, but yeah, effectiveness might be, it's hard, it's so hard to measure, but yeah, as to whether it's effective or not, I don't know, it depends on the game, really.
Thank you.
Hi, I love that the representation is getting better in video games for scientists and people in technology in general. Some of the people I've met that are the most passionate scientists, engineers, technologists, whatever you may call them, are people who, I guess, got the bug when they were young. Now, I've got a 4-year-old who unfortunately at the moment aspires to be a princess.
Yep.
So what's your thought around getting them early? Because I'm sort of having this fear that, oh my God, she just wants to be a princess, and it'll go into fashion design, then it will go into, you know, all the other typical stuff that other than
I would have thought the
being a
track
scientist.
from Princess is more of a politics. No, I mean, so just give them opportunities, give them games, give them lots of choice. I mean, if they keep want to play games about princesses, there's nothing wrong with that either. But what is the princess doing? I guess is the other question.
There's Princess Bubblegum in Adventure Time.
There is Princess Bubblegum in
Oh.
Adventure Time. Yeah.
She's the castle scientist.
So the
I mean,
reason why
only past it.
sorry.
So I was going to pass to Megan because
Oh, I was just
She has a child.
She's only 2. I think with a lot of children, it's mostly like primary school, they're so enthusiastic about anything, and then it's sort of late primary school, early high school where they start switching off from whatever it might be, not necessarily science, but like science and maths are some of the ones that they easily switch off from. So I guess it's like as you move halfway through primary school and into later primary school, looking at I guess finding role models, finding activities, finding things to do that say, hey, this is still really cool and interesting, even though you might not enjoy how it's delivered at school, like the subject itself or the career itself can be really fun, and there's lots of out-of-school opportunities to get involved with. So I guess that's what I'd say, is if you don't think they're into it at school, see if they'll do some stuff outside of school, because school's not the be-all, end-all.
No, not at all. The other thing is open-ended games. Games that don't have rigid structure. So your Minecrafts, your if it's Minecraft at the moment.
Factorio, that's probably
Factorio, yeah, it's a little bit older again.
Old, yeah.
But anything that doesn't have a strong structure, because most of that free-form play is trial and error and experimentation, and those are the kinds of mental processes, that's the synaptic sort of link that you want to be reinforcing. So anything that allows them to express themselves in that way, it might not look on the surface as being something that's particularly deep, but what's happening underneath the surface is hugely, hugely powerful.
Thank you.
Hi. So I just finished my Masters in Science Communication.
Congratulations.
Thank you. It was a lot of work. But I guess one of the things we looked at is we found, we did a little bit of, looking at games and looking about how science is represented in media, and it's not so hard these days to reach the young people, because I guess you look around here and you see more people engaged in science who are already engaged in games because of the, comfort with technology and starting to get some role models in that space, as you referred to. How do you get older people interested in games? Because, we end up having old people making decisions about this country, in government and making decisions about our future, and who are inherently untrusting of science, and that's why you end up with climate change skepticism and all that ridiculous bullshit that you end up with. Do you know of any games, I guess, with positive science role models that we can start trying to encourage parents and grandparents and cousins and all of those people that you know on Facebook who are really anti-science and unhelpful, that we can kind of engage them with?
That's a toughie.
Yeah, so the people who are already at that age, who are already disconnected, it's very, very hard to get them to change behaviours. I say the closest thing is to start getting them to play games that don't appear to be games.
Mobile games is most people have a mobile phone, and most people have games on there, so that's a good entry point.
Specific
can't think
games
of anything
that
off the top of my head, unless you could see Hero Quest. Not representation of science.
Yeah, that's not too much of a representation of scientists, but it is probably a good one to just say, hey, this is like a good use of games to do science. Yeah, it is really, really hard to change people's mind once they've made it up. I guess time eventually will take care of that.
Yeah, I was going to say,
it'd be nice to not have to wait 30 years until all these people are in charge.
Oh, I've seen some of them, they haven't got 30 years.
There's a group called IGEA, who are usually here every year, who do a report every year about the state of video game industry in Australia, and they do one for New Zealand. The one from this year, one of their big findings was older Australians, I think the age bracket was 50 plus, were the fastest growing demographic in terms of playing games. So more and more of them are beginning to play games, and so you're seeing more people play games. That's not to say politicians are playing games, but or it's about science, but that was really exciting to see, actually. And I guess as the generations move through, it'll just become the norm.
Yeah, I guess it is a little bit tough because science is often shown as adversarial in a lot of games, like something's gone horribly wrong because the scientists are all mad. But I think there's a couple of walking simulators. I think maybe Tacoma might be one that might be good. I have a feeling
Firewatch is a fantastic one.
Yeah, it's like survival-ish kind of, or not survival. It's like an outdoorsman.
But it's got that sense of there are logic puzzles. There's a dialogue. There's a story, and it's a setting that's a bit more familiar to that sort of generation.
Yeah, maybe that would be good. Both made by Campo Santo, I think.
Yeah.
But it is a tough one.
I don't think there's any.
Yeah, no good examples, but that's
Well, you've just
probably-
finished your masters, so it's your job to find it now.
Yeah, exactly.
Make it.
Thank you.
I got 2 comments. One on that as well. I found with my parents, using tabletop games as a gateway has been helpful.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
Like we've got Dad who's 63 playing things like Gloom and Cards Against Humanity he found hilarious. But other things like that, because they can pick it up and they're used to playing things like 500 and card games and stuff, so it's easier to get them into. But something I'm super interested in is that space game that you showed. My dad is a massive space nut, so now for the first time ever I'm like, maybe I do need VR so that I can get Dad in space, because he'll get a massive kick out of that.
Yeah.
My other comment is you forgot a good scientist.
Oh no.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah. Well, Professor Layton is probably...
Hey,
Dad's
he's a good
gonna be
professor
in
in
that
the
game.
game.
I'm sitting there going, but Layton.
Of course.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming.
Pandemic is also probably a good board game.
Pandemic's
Yeah.
fantastic.
Because you're a
yeah.
scientist, engineer, medic, saving the world.
This one's off on a little bit of a tangent.
Excellent.
Given the advances in technology that have happened in the last few years, like augmented reality, virtual reality, that sort of thing, where do you see the technology going in the next few years, and where would you like to see it go?
The other night we went and played Zero Latency, which is sort of just 2 train stops out of town, and it's a room scale VR game. So they have sensors in the ceiling, you wear the computer in the backpack, and the VR in your head, and on your head, not in your head. But being able to like walk around within the game world, but while also physically walking was very immersive. And so I think more experiences like that, where we can turn like just an empty warehouse into a fantastical world and be like fully bodily immersed in a game. Or, you know, even imagine like playing paintball with like AR stuff popping up in your vision, that sort of thing. I think that's where I'd like to see it go, but that's not very far forward in the future.
I mean, we are still very early in the VR. So I mean, this is the Wild West still for VR. There's so much where people are going, oh, I have to make a VR game like this. But, oh, wait, I don't have to make it like this. There's no rules. There's no...
Yeah, I was saying earlier, I'm kind of bored of the ones where you just stand still and shoot waves of things coming at you in VR. Like, there's so much more that we could be doing.
My favourite game genre at the moment is what I like to call cooperation simulators. So things like Star Trek Bridge Crew is a fantastic example.
They simulate you cooperating.
Yeah, so they're simulators that force you to cooperate. Games that only advance when you're communicating, when you're talking and sort of sharing information and that kind of stuff. I think that area is going to blow up massively. Because
I think especially because that's what you need to do in the workplace, but it's really hard to train those skills or make sure people have those skills.
And I think moving on from that is hopefully, I mean, VR probably hasn't had the uptake that it wanted to yet. But using VR for more than just shooty bang bang would be good. Like we made a joke out of the pregnancy thing, but stuff like that where you get to experience
stuff that you can't do otherwise.
Exactly.
Or being an astronaut and
and also just social bounds and that kind of stuff to be able to empathize with another person's experience without having to necessarily go through the possible horror of whatever they've gone through. I think that's really, really powerful. You see it a lot in tabletop games. I think Dialect is one that I'm really, really keen to play, where you are working together to create a language that eventually dies, and only you know, that group of friends knows the language. It's very interesting. I think exploring more of that space within VR, where you have this ability to completely inhabit someone else's experience, would be really, really cool.
And then I guess moving on from there, if people are brave enough to have implantables, so we'll start to have sensations that you're not used to feeling and that kind of stuff. But that's way down the track unless you're really stupid.
So like when you talk like actual tactile feedback devices and that sort of thing.
Yep. Yeah, so I was really stupid and implanted some magnets and computer chips in my body a couple of years back, so I can feel electromagnetic fields. And that is a really bizarre sensation, but the ability to sense things in that respect would put a whole new spin on games. So if that could be made safe and
legal,
I'd say give that 20, 30 years, maybe 40 years.
Surely 10. I'm betting on 10.
We didn't have an iPhone 10 years ago.
Yeah,
it's true. Just if I may.
Yeah.
Would it be safe to say then that part of the resistance towards the uptake to VR is like a technological barrier? Like as the technology is advancing and maturing,
It's money.
Yeah, it's got to be financial.
It's hugely money.
It's a grand.
It's becoming more accessible now as it's just
dropping.
becoming way cheaper. So yeah.
As people, I said the phone VR is sort of giving it a bit of a kick at the moment because everyone has a phone. Everyone has a phone, well, most people have a phone that can do very low-level VR stuff, but you still need a peripheral for it. So unless you're, unless Apple starts to hand out free VR things,
IVR.
yes, I mean Samsung does as well. I'm no Apple fan, that's for sure. But until we start getting the forced penetration, no, that sounds terrible.
Hey. PG Tim.
Great notes.
We force the marketplace to get in people's. You know what I mean?
guys,
Yeah.
thank you very much.
Anyway, I guess we just want to say thank you all for coming.
Thank you,
We have started a podcast with all this sort of stuff because we kept having too much stuff to
talk
talk
about.
about once a year at PAX. So if you want to follow us, check us out at PXtS Science. We've also, for those of you who have stayed, we've hidden to Think of the Children. It's
Game
a
cards.
game product keys under some seats.
We don't
towards
remember
this
which
area.
seats it is.
We can't
Yeah.
remember.
We know it's in the
But
front
they're somewhere.
section.
There's one in the
Somewhere.
front section and one in the left section. Sorry,
And that's
right section.
actually what we gave to our volunteer. Not
Yeah, we didn't give him the vagina thing.
But yeah, thanks for coming.
Thanks for coming.
everyone.
We'll see you next year.
Perfect.